next game is a much longer game. That was between Fabiano Caruana and Richárd Rapport, the U.S. versus Hungary. This was board 2 of the Olympiad. The other match was board 1, and this is board 1 of the match. Obviously. And I don't want to show you the whole game because it's too much. So I want to show you the key points. In this position, which is about equal, Rapport made the engine move, which would surprise a lot of people. He castled queenside. Black's moved all of his pawns in front of his king, so usually you wouldn't castle there. But the engine says that's good. Okay, then they maneuvered around a lot, and they got to this position. White is slightly better. Black played knight e8, which is good. d4. And this is the first time in the game where white got a serious advantage. This position, Rapport made a mistake. The engine says he should play knight g7, which defends his pawn and allows black to trade off the white knight if he hops into f5. But Rapport played the greedy move. Queen takes h4. And now white's winning immediately. And that requires white to see incredibly brilliant move. And if black had seen it, he wouldn't have played queen h4. And if Caruana had seen it, he would have won. But Caruana didn't see it, and I don't blame him at all. I got nothing. I don't blame either player. Instead, Fabiano played knight f5, and white is better. Not winning, but better. But anyway, the forced win that Fabiano missed, and Rapport, was taking on c5, attacking the rook quite a bit. Rook takes. Now white's threatening to take on b6 and take on f7. And the engine plays queen e7, and after take says that white's +3. I mean, knight f5's coming, and black's king is ridiculous. Okay, and obviously both players expected queen takes knight, queen takes f7 check, and then king a6. And black is threatening queen e1 check, taking the rook, or queen e1 check, queen h4 check, draw. So if white plays queen takes rook, black can play for a win, or black can immediately draw. And the engine says black should take the draw. And I'm sure Rapport saw that, and I'm sure Fabi saw that, and that's why this wasn't played, and why Rapport allowed it. But as was pointed out by the commentary after they checked their engines, white is winning immediately here. White has the perfect pawn structure. So white to play and win. There's only two ways you can find it. You can use an engine, or you already saw the winning move on the broadcast. If you're actually trying to find the winning move, then, you got two chances. Yeah, Bonarici is correct, plus the other guy that had the correct answer. Meno Homo, which is rook e2, stopping queen e1 check and queen e3 check. Now, white's down a piece, But black has no hope. So there's nothing to do here. You can't give up your rook. If you play rook f6, I take, and I'm threatening mate. The engine actually announces mate here. It says white's mating black. I guess you could play knight g7, I suppose. Then queen c7 threatens mate. And if you take, there's several ways to win, but the way that's forced mate is crazy. It's check. You can't play king b6 because of here. And then queen d8. And the idea is we're threatening queen a5 and rook b2. And you can't play king a6 because queen a8 and rook b2. The engine just says it's mate. It says there's no move black can make here. I'm just going to pre-move this, and the queen and rook will give mate. So it announces mate here. So after rook e2, white would have won. So queen takes h4 was a mistake. And then white had to see rook e2 to take on c5, which I guess nobody's seeing, except, engines. So he played knight f5. White is still much better. Now, white can't take anything because there's too much pressure on the d file. So he correctly played rook d3, defending his rook. Now he wants to take everything. Okay, takes, and this is very strong for white. c5, dc5, rook d3. The engine's saying that now white is winning. And he took on b6, which gives away some of his advantage. The best move is queen d1, threatening rook d7 check. And the engine says white is +2. But he took this, now he's +1. And rook d5 is now, the game is equal. Again, queen d1, threatening rook d7 is +1.44. So good winning chances. After rook d5, the game should be a draw. Rook b7 is a mistake. Rapport should play rook b4, more aggressive. And then queen a1 is a mistake. White should play queen e1, threatening the a pawn. And then when black plays rook b4, then queen c3 threatens the e pawn. But he played queen a1, and then the engine doesn't like g3 very much. Knight takes, knight f6 it likes, rook b1 check it likes. And white's up a lot of pawns, but they're all the worst pawns in chess history. So probably the game is a draw. And what the engine wants to do is play queen d3, threatening queen d4 check, and white straightens his pawns out. And then after queen takes, we check, and we take the knight on f6 at some point. It wants to check here first for some reason. And then it says white has some winning chances in this queen and pawn ending. It says it's a draw with best play, but that white's a pawn up. So white has chances to win. Probably a draw. And instead of playing queen d3, Fabi played queen e1, attacking, putting pressure on the a pawn. Knight g4, knight f1, knight f6, always repeat. And it doesn't like king b7. It says knight takes e4 is just a draw. They're in time trouble here with no time control to get to. And this is just a draw because black's king is too active. And king f2 was too far. And here even king g1 is the best move. So this position's quite interesting because white's up 2 pawns, but black's playing for a win. And if black wins, they tie the match. The other games have finished. US was up 2-1. And black is threatening queen e2 mate. And you can't play king f2 to run away because the knight would check and the queen's hanging. Only move to not lose immediately. Well, actually, queen a3 check is also okay. Is queen b2. And in this position, black played an amazing move. He played king c6. And basically said, you're in Zugzwang. So white can't move anything. Queen has to stay on e2 because it's mate. And if queen f2, then queen d1's mate. And if queen d2, then I check. And then I play knight e4 check, winning your queen. If you move your king, knight d1 check wins your king. Knight goes here, queen e2's mate. Knight here's hanging. So yeah, it's hard to move for white. And if white plays knight h2, that takes away the g1 square from the king. So we have checkmate. And if the knight was on f1, which is where it was, then white could play king g1. So white can't move. So king c6 is a brilliant winning try, especially when your opponent has a minute left. Fabi played e4, which is fine. And then king c7, which is funny. In this position, white should play e5, and he's drawing, but he played c5, which is a mistake. Now black's better, briefly. And something funny happened this game. Rapport repeated, because always repeat. And in this position, Fabi said, I claim a draw with king e1. And Fabi was wrong, because in this position, which is the beginning of c5, the queen is on d3. So when Rapport was repeating, this isn't the starting position, queen's on d3. So this would be the first time this position happened, and this would be the second time. And since it was going queen here, Fabi forgot that in this position, the queen's on d3, not d4. The queen was on d4, and they did that, then he would have been right. So he incorrectly claimed a draw, so Rapport got 2 extra minutes. Then Rapport played for the win. And in this position, Rapport made a mistake. Black has chances to win if he plays knight takes a4, attacking the queen, stopping queen b6 check. And this pawn is under attack, queen is under attack, and queen takes g2, check is under attack. And after knight takes a4, the engine says black's like half a pawn up. So he would have had good winning chances with Fabi having so little time. But instead he played knight d5, and now Fabi made the best move, the only move that draws easily, and that's queen b5. That defends the knight, it gets rid of most of the knight forks, and it threatens to take this pawn with check. And after queen g2, king c1, the engine just says it's equal. Black's going to run out of checks, and white's going to be able to check a lot and have a passed pawn. And often if black pushes the pawn, we just sack our knight and it's a draw. So now it's a draw. Queen g2, is an equal position, so he could try to win, but he repeated check, check, and he forgot that white can just play king f2. He was thinking we'd repeat again and then try to win. Now you can't try to win because black's down a pawn, and this pawn's hanging with check. So if anybody's going to try to win, it's white. But black has like 50 perps here. But black doesn't have any more winning chances. So knight d5 really threw away his winning chances. Knight takes a4 would have had chances. And then they just repeated. They just agreed to a draw. Now, once I go here, there's you can't win my g pawn. Got to defend your a pawn, so forth. If the knight moves, there's queen b6 check. So the U.S. scraped by and won their match. But it's funny, Fabi was winning, and he was better, and he had no losing chances, and then he almost lost. Time trouble makes fools of us all. But it showed that Fabi has the American spirit, because the game was 76 moves long. And so forth.